Thanks for joining us. We'll get started in a little bit as more people are getting on. Thanks for joining us. We'll get started in a little bit as more people are getting. So we will get started as soon as we get a few more people on. We are streaming live on YouTube, just for anyone who wants to watch. Thanks for everybody joining us. We're just waiting for a few more folks to come on, and then we will get started. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us for the Ocean Shore Vehicle Access Rule Advisory Committee. My name is Katie Guthier. I'm the Government Relations and Policy Manager for OPRD. And I want to thank you for being willing to participate in this Rule Advisory Committee. We're going to start by doing a round of introductions so everybody can then see each other, and then we'll go over what the process is for the Rule Advisory Committee. So I'm going to look through the names here and call on folks as I see them. And then if you can just introduce yourself and how you're involved in this process. So Tori, do you want to go first?
Yes, I'm Tori McComey, or Victoria, and I am representing the Oregon Shores Conservation Coalition, and I live in Lincoln City in the Rhodes End neighborhood.
Great, thank you. Courtney. Oh, it looks like we.
Yeah, I can't understand what anyone is saying. My internet's not good enough. Hold on.
Oh no. Sometimes if you shut off your video, it works better. We can go to Dave.
Hi, everybody. Dave Broderick, Lincoln City PD here, just helping out from the law enforcement perspective on this.
Great, thanks, Dave. Laurel.
Good afternoon, everybody. Laurel Hillman, Oregon Parks and Recreation Department Ocean Shore Resource Coordinator. Nice to be here today.
Ollie.
Hi, my name is Ollie Richardson. I got referred by Charlie Plybon from the Surfrider, but I'm an avid surfer. I've been teaching for Lincoln County for the last 20 years. And I'm just I feel like I'm here because I want to see what the potential problems are and make sure that access remains where we can keep it, and hopefully prevent any future problems with the public, and keeping public safety at the highest, to make sure everyone has access to all the different things that we do on the beaches.
Preson.
Afternoon, I'm Preson Phillips. I'm the Central Coast District Manager for State Parks, so I help oversee the beach rangers and the park managers on the upland territories. And I've been working kind of with Lincoln City Parks and Rec on the kind of seasonal closures and openings of the beach, and so looking forward to this process, getting some good firm foundation what we're going to do here.
Great, thanks. Robert.
Hi everyone, my name is Robert Ellison. I work for Oregon Parks and Recreation Department as a policy coordinator. So I'm here to help support this meeting and be able to make sure that we get everyone involved.
Courtney, do you want to try again? Oh. Maybe not. Jeannie, do you want to? We're just doing a round of introductions.
Yep. Thanks, Katie. Hi, I'm Jeannie Sprague. I'm Director of Lincoln City Parks and Recreation. We work with Preson and OPRD quite a bit with our beach accesses, and we maintain jurisdiction and maintenance of the two beach accesses we're talking about up until you reach the vegetation and beach line.
Great, thank you. Well, we will, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen again and just give you a little bit about the plan for today. We did the introductions. And then I'm gonna go give a brief introduction into the rulemaking process and our objectives. And then I'm hoping that we can discuss the two areas separately. So 34th Street and then 15th Street. And we want to discuss safety, access, user, historic uses, all parking, all points of each access. And then we do have to discuss the fiscal and economic impact. And then we'll discuss next steps. And we may not get through all of this today. It kind of depends on how much discussion we have on each one. We do have another meeting time set aside on May 10th if we need it. We'll just kind of see how things go. Are there any questions on the process for today's meeting? Great. So just a little bit about rulemaking. It's in statute, kind of the process is in statute. So the way that we have utilized the rulemaking process, we have a need. So for this process, we heard from Lincoln City that they would like to work with us on having changes made on the Ocean Shore rules. We prepare a draft, and then it goes to an optional advisory group. So that is what you all are, the rule advisory group. So you have a draft of the potential rules to discuss. After that, in that group, one of the statutory requirements is that you discuss the fiscal and economic impact of the potential rules. It goes to our Parks and Recreation Commission, and they approved opening the rules. We have the Department of Justice review potential rules, and then it goes to public comment. So whatever this group discusses will go to an open public comment process where anyone in the public can participate. We'll do notices out to the public. We'll have a public hearing, and people will be able to comment online and via mail. And then based on the public comment, we may revise the proposed rules, and the Department of Justice will review any draft again. And then we could come back to this group, or it could go directly to the Parks and Recreation Commission, and they make a determination about whether to adopt any final rule changes. And then the rule changes become permanent. Because it's the Ocean Shore, it will also go to the Lincoln City Council for their review as well. Any questions on the rulemaking process? I know it's kind of complex and administrative, but I thought it was helpful to understand how the process works. Great. And then we do continue to monitor the rules. So the Rule Advisory Committee is designed to advise the agency on proposed rules before we open them up for public comment. The Parks and Recreation Commission makes the final determination, and that's a group of 7 individuals that have been appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Senate to guide policy for the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. And we will aim at consensus today, but it's not a requirement. We're looking really for feedback and your thoughts on how the rules should be worded. So the request today is to look at the 35th Street Court or 35th Court and 15th Street. And 35th Court is the one we were going to talk about first. That one is currently closed at the access point, except for emergency vehicles. And 15th Street has closed seasonally, closed temporarily. So starting with 35th, it's also called 34th Street. I think there's differences. Are there thoughts about maintaining the closure there and having that become a permanent closure? And I'm going to stop the sharing because I think it's easier for us to see. Thoughts on the closure of that place? Tori?
Yes, Oregon Shores Conservation Committee is against all parking on the beaches in Oregon. And as a Lincoln City resident, I strongly agree with that for many reasons. We get a lot of visitors. We're known for beach walking. And I think it's very important that we keep our beaches free of cars. There's more and more people coming, and there's also a lot of people using electric bikes and so on. And the way a lot of people don't understand even the tides here. And I think parking is just very problematic. And so I would, if the parks need more parking for beach access, I would hope that they look at maybe expanding the road's end parking lot. There's a lot of grass in that parking area. Perhaps they could add parking there, but no beach access for vehicles except emergency.
Great, thank you. I should probably back up. And Precinct and Jeannie, do you want to talk about the experience at 34th Street with the closure over the last year?
So sure. I don't know if we have a specific event, or you're just talking like how what's been going on there. Is that what you mean,
Yeah.
Katie? Okay. Well, I know, so the Lincoln City manages and maintains the upland property there. And so what you see, the hardscapes and the signs and the benches and everything, pretty much there's a little bit of a gray area as you get towards the sand, but that's all Lincoln City Parks and Recreation, and so here and there, based on I guess usage and some events and stuff, they have closed that section of the beach, and this one is particularly onerous with regards to pedestrian and vehicle conflicts. I mean, pretty scary at times. And so it's been seasonally closed by the upland land manager. And what I kind of asked, and Jeannie and I kind of got together on this process, is that we want to kind of firm up, because they're not going to open beach for driving on the other side of it. And there's maps and people are coming to do it, and it's not really open. And so we need to kind of figure out how to either change that or whatnot. And so Jeannie, I'll let you kind of run with it a little bit too.
Okay. Thanks, Precinct. So yeah, we have been working closely with OPRD as well as our Lincoln City Police Department and North Lincoln Fire and Rescue about these decisions. And obviously City Council makes the decision, not my department or the police. We just make recommendations. Council did vote to close that the 34th Court or street access for this entire calendar year until December 31st. And they did that last year too. And from the Parks and Rec perspective, there's a couple of perspectives. One is the response from the public. I have not heard a negative response from the public due to that closure. On the flip side, I have heard before we did the closure concerns from the public about it being open. And one of the concerns is at 34th, especially once you get off the hardscape and start going into the beach, there's quite a bit of a drop there. And what I had before was families coming to me with concerns that a child could be close to that drop, walking up to the access, the car wouldn't see them, and there could be an accident. So that was something that was brought to my attention and to the city councilors. I do know that, like you said, Katie, that council was asking for permanent closure of that site. And I'm going to focus on that side before we go to Northwest 15th. And again, I just have not heard any public concern about the closure at this time in my department. I don't know if Dave has some other, Dave Broderick, Chief of Police, may have some other insights on this.
I'll just mimic what Jeannie's saying about the public safety aspect of it down there. It's a tight little spot to get off of the pavement onto the beach. There's quite a drop. I think that there's sometimes undermined or there's a creek in there. And so if we have people driving down there at night, especially, or just people being rowdy and going through there, there's a potential that we're going to have some kind of a vehicle pedestrian conflict.
Great, thank you. Tori, go ahead.
I think it's also important to realize that that part of the beach is in the Cascade Head Marine Reserve. And actually that 34th Street marks the no harvest, one end of the no harvest zone of that reserve. And I believe the end of the whole reserve is right around the 15th Street. So I think that, you know, as far as protecting our marine reserve, it's a very, very important part of the coast, and one that I think that really needs to be looked at, that really needs a lot of protection, because we're very lucky to have that here. So I think it's important to realize that that is in the Marine Reserve.
So Ollie, from a surfing perspective, is that a place where users would go, or?
No, there's, to my knowledge, there's not that specific area right there. I mean, there will be people that surf in that area, but it has to be a day where there's either no wind or an east wind, because there's really no wind protection there. There's no headland sticking out or jetty. So to my knowledge, I mean, like I said, I've never personally actually surfed right there where we're talking about. But I guess the things that come to mind, just because I've kind of seen the transition with what they've done in Pacific City, and granted, that's a whole different animal up there, because they have the dory boats that launch there as well, and they had a really bad incident there that kind of helped trigger that. But they've closed the beach down up there, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with, and you know, it's kind of, I guess from my standpoint of, it was very convenient to be able to park on the beach up there. I guess it was more of a convenience. It wasn't a necessity. But now that they've closed the beach down, you know, I think parking has become even more of an issue. And I guess my two questions that come to mind, because I don't know, is, I guess question number one is there a parking issue right now? And like, are there so many vehicles going down that access point onto the beach and parking on the beach because there's no parking? Or are they doing it just because they want to have the thrill of driving in the sand on the beach? And then I guess my second question is I don't know, how big is that area? Is it a couple hundred yards? Like how far can you drive up and down the beach there before you're out of the designated area where you're allowed to drive on the beach? Is there anyone on that can answer those two questions, just to kind of help get some better understanding for everyone? Because I know for me personally, I have no preference on whether people are allowed to or not right now, but I definitely feel like I can provide some valuable insight onto, you know, is there a problem? And if there is a problem, what can we do to rectify it and make it so that it's not going to be an issue? And if it's public safety is the issue, and there's already been multiple, you know, either injuries or potential conflicts that have happened because of this beach access point, then it sounds like there need to be some changes made to address that. Okay, so I see some chats there, 150 feet on each side.
So Ollie, this is Priest, and I'll just, again, I was going to say, basically, you come down off of either one of these, whether it's the 15th Street, which is kind of the more developed and, you know, kind of more the one we're going to decide if or not it's been seasonally, and then the 35th Court. Come down that beach run, it's 150 feet each way. And we usually delineate them with like the T-posts and the sand that, folks do with the Brodies around and stuff like that. But it's a pretty small, both of them are pretty small holdings. It was meant to preserve kind of that traditional access, get grandpa down, get his feet in the sand kind of thing, because he can't walk down anymore type stuff. I don't believe it was ever intended to supplement parking in Lincoln City. That's my opinion. So
okay. And I guess with that, just like you say, some of this could be an access issue for people with disabilities or that may be in a wheelchair to get them down on the beach easily. But I assume you've gotten a really positive response. I know you're using those ramps that kind of lay in the sand at multiple points in Lincoln City now, especially during the summer. So I would assume that's possibly alleviating any access issues for people with disabilities or that might be confined to a wheelchair to be able to get down on the beach easily.
Yes, Ollie, and I can answer that one. Before I get to the ADA issue, though, I agree with Preston. I don't, from the perspective of Parks and Recreation, believe it's a parking issue of why people go down on the drive-on access. Obviously, it is a lot easier and closer for them to get to the ocean and the sand. But we do have a lot of beach accesses that get very close to the ocean and the sand, and much of it is due to the ADA Beach Mobility Access Program that we just started last year in the city. So we have 29 beach accesses that our department maintains in Lincoln City. State Parks additionally has 2 very large ones. So we're up to about 31 public beach accesses. Many of them have parking, some have restrooms. Some of them have steep declines and stairs. Many of them have a straightforward path onto the sand. We picked 3 areas in town using one of the state parks, Dee River, using Southwest 35th Court and Southwest 51st Street, where we've put out mobility mats, which is for any user's ability. It could be for a wheelchair, or it could be with someone that just has, some trouble walking. We also have beach wheelchairs that we have down at 51st. So that's another alternative mode of transportation out onto the beach. And we're looking at working with Precinct to put one up at Dee River also. So we're trying to get to all sections of the city. I have heard of what you're saying, Ollie, of people being concerned with ADA access to our beaches. And I think the city we're definitely one of the first cities on the coast that's putting out those Moby mats. There's other cities doing quite a few beach wheelchairs, but we're trying to address that. But yeah, the parking issue, parking's always a concern in Lincoln City for any of our parks, open spaces or beach accesses. But we have quite a bit of parking and public right of way.
Courtney, it seems like you now have audio. Do you want to introduce yourself? Oh, but you're on mute.
I'm Courtney Watson. I'm here for the 15th Street Jeepers group, which we used to go down to 15th Street and help out where we could at times.
Great, thank you. And do you have thoughts on the 34th Street closure?
It's one of those odd ones. There's not really any parking up top for people to even park there. But it's one of those accesses that it is rough enough that you have to have a qualified vehicle just to get down safely. And yeah, there were conflicts between pedestrians and the vehicles just because they're on the same path. There's not a separate walkway for the pedestrians to go down as the vehicles to go down. But we never had an issue of making it down there in the Jeeps or the big trucks, but is definitely a 4-wheel drive access only.
Okay, are there any other thoughts about 34th Street?
Hi. Well, since I walk that beach almost every day or almost, many times, I have seen people get stuck in the sand on that access point, even in trucks. And also, a couple of years ago, there was a pair of crazy mallard ducks who were on the beach regularly until one day somebody actually in a car ran them over. And so it is a problem, not just with people, but with wildlife too, unfortunately.
Thank you. So let's move on to 15th Street. And Jeannie, do you want to just give us a background on what the city has done on 15th Street?
Sure. So unlike 34th, we have not permanently closed it for the calendar year. We do close it for king tides, and we work with OPRD for that. And that's definitely due to safety issues. The tide goes all the way up to the vegetation line, which is where it starts with the hardscape. We just do not want people to go down there and get their vehicles stuck in the sand or anyone hurt. So that's 3 times a year. We do the closure for the king tides. It's usually for 3 to 7 days for that. Other than that, I do know our city council is asking OPRD to look into, I want to read it correctly so I'm not quoting it wrong, to begin a public process to inquire about the closure of 15th Street beach access regarding its suitability for continued use as a vehicle access and not just for emergency vehicles. So right now it's I'm sure all of you know, it's a very long paved hardscape down to the sands, and it's got railings on it. We are doing a capital project on the railings this year to replace them. They're quite old and rusted out, so we're going to be fixing those. It's got 2 restrooms on it, bench areas, and it's got steps all the way down. So it's not ADA. It couldn't be anyways due to the slope for access to the beach. Would you like more information on that, Katie? That's just
No, I think that helps. And maybe Precinct, do you want to just any updates on issues that we have had there from a parks perspective?
Sure. So from our standpoint, yeah, it's a decent vehicle access, although we have beach worthy vehicles and side by sides we can get on almost anywhere. So it's not required that be open for us. It is, however, a point of a lot of contacts for us when our rangers are on the beach. You know, a lot of folks want to get on both sides of it. I know, I'm sure Chief Broderick there can confirm that at times it's can get pretty crazy down there, for lack of better terms. I know last summer before the city council requested to close it, I think before 4th of July, we had a couple of weekends where staff actually was starting to fear for their own personal safety. It was just grossly outnumbered. And folks were, you know, kind of bound and determined to be down there. And it takes maybe one Yahoo driver to get sideways and block that whole thing, you know. And so I know, you know, police and fire can't stand that, and that's not a good thing because you can't get people on or off the beach when you need to. So, but most times of the year we're kind of neutral. You know, it turns into a parking lot, maybe with the original intent. A few folks can get down there, but that's quite that's probably not a whole lot of good for a lot of the challenges that come with that site. So trying to not stay personal with it. Professionally, it's a challenging spot.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly, I think. Precinct 15th Street, as far as public safety and our agency here, is a giant headache all summer. Twice I've asked for it to be closed before 4th of July because we are unable to man it down there. This starts for us as soon as summer starts, which it started for us on Saturday. And I don't know if Parks had anybody down there, but I have 3 CAD reports in my hand right now from Saturday with 85 to 100 vehicles down there and 25 to 30 of them being outside the boundary doing cookies. And it took one officer almost 3 hours just to get people cleared out of there. And that's actually a mild one. In the summertime, close to the 4th, we'll have 200, 250 people or vehicles down there. And it's not only vehicles, it's tent sites, it's picnic sites with vehicles driving between these picnic sites and tent sites, and we have children running around down there. And it's just a matter of time before we have some type of tragedy like happened up in Pacific City. And I'm not for closing anything. I'm not for keeping anything open. I just want to make sure that everybody stays safe, and we have to find some way to be able to do that on 15th Street because LCPD doesn't have the staff to be down there. This weekend, we had to have somebody working the ramp because you can only get one vehicle up or one vehicle down at a time. And so we're doing traffic controls, and we don't have the policemen to do that.
Katie, I'll give it from the perspective of our Parks and Recreation maintenance staff. So they're the ones, we visit that beach access as well as every beach access daily, if not twice, to maintain it and clean out the restrooms and remove trash. So I'll start with the environmental concerns. We have tide pool areas down there, and beach. With the number of vehicles that are down there, we do have environmental concerns, and that has to do with oil leakage. Just going outside the boundaries. I agree with Chief that often there's multiple number of cars that go outside the beach areas, the stated sign areas that say do not drive any further. We do not enforce any of those, but I tell you on a daily basis, we are asked to enforce that because, as Precinct knows, they don't know the difference between our Parks and Rec maintenance staff and park rangers. So our staff spend a lot of time trying to educate the public on that. And often the people that are driving outside the area, are not interested in that information. Again, it's not our place. It's not our jurisdiction to try to enforce that. We're not the police. We're not rangers. The other concerns is it's a very heavy load on that beach access. We cannot keep up with the public restrooms, with the trash that's there. There's a big trash load when that many people come through. And I'm sorry, I forgot Chief Broderick. We do close down on the 4th of July too. We have in the past due to the safety concerns. And we have 2 staff on during those days, and we haven't been able to keep up with this access in the past. Again, we can't spend all day down there, like Chief was saying, that he has one of his officers even having to be called off to be down there because we have 51 other sites in the city that we've got to maintain on a daily basis. So environmental concerns about impact on maintenance staff, concerns either for or against. We will follow whatever council or the public decides. Obviously, that's our jobs. I can say that I do get many concerns either emailed, called in, or talked to my park maintenance staff about the safety issues. And most of it is just that there's so many cars packed down there, the drivers cannot see very well at times around them. And there's often concerns. It's brought up a lot of children being hit, of children playing in the sand and a driver not seeing them, of drivers maybe being incapacitated and not being able to see who may be on the beach. It's very crowded there. There's a lot of barbecues going on and other issues like that. Okay, so yes, I've talked about the non-compliance with parking. The last one with the environmental impact is we do get individuals going down there not realizing that their car may not be the best vehicle to be down on a sandy beach, especially during tide times, and they'll get their vehicles stuck. And we'll have to get tow operators who sometimes aren't even interested in getting down there on the sand themselves and trying to remove these cars. We've had cars completely submerged by the ocean and taken out. So that's concern about damage to the environment. And also, I mean, I feel at times people do not know the risk they may be taking and going down in a vehicle, like Courtney was saying, that's not appropriate for the drive-on beach access. I think that's about it. As for concerns of closing it down, I have heard a few concerns of closing it down. Those are have to do with ADA. People have concerns about being able to get up right onto the beach. If they have ADA concerns, that is one concern I've heard. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jeannie. So other concerns about 15th Street, Ollie?
Yeah, I guess I just have one. I guess this is more of a thought, but let's say that, for example, the 15th Street, after we are done, and depending on how city council rules, but let's say that they were to either restrict or completely take away access at the 15th Street. Is there a possibility, or would this be something that would be too hard to manage? Because I'm thinking of Uquinna Head, and the Uquinna Head Lighthouse. You can drive in there, and there's one spot where there is a gate, and you can get a key at when you check in, when you come through the main gate. You can get a key access to go down through this gate for ADA access for people in wheelchairs. And I'm wondering, would there be any possibility of something like that if there were to be restricted access? Would people with disabilities or people that have mobility issues still be able to somehow be granted access with like some kind of a gate access of any kind? I mean, it would require to install something in addition there. Because I don't know, if this were to be closed, I don't know what kind of barriers you would have to put up to permanently close it, because I assume this would still be open to emergency vehicles 24/7 if there were some type of an emergency. But I'm wondering if there's any way to, and I guess it's just a thought for, depending on what the decision is there a way to keep somehow a key card access for people that need the access to get to the beach, I guess, if that makes sense.
It does, Ollie. To answer your question about the 24-hour emergency access. So right now there are bollards that for both of those accesses can be put into place immediately and then can be taken down with key access that both our police department and North Lincoln Fire and Rescue have those keys to.
Okay.
If it's such an emergency that they can't wait and get out of their vehicle and unlock it, they can bust it down too. They're collapsible bollards. So
Okay.
Those are the kind of bollards that are in place now and would continue to be in place in the future for the emergency access. Per the having access for ADA access, I have heard that idea, Ollie, before. I think it just comes down to staff capacity and whether or not there would be someone that would be able to offer to open that access. That's the tough thing we had with our beach wheelchairs and why we made it remote access. We use an app for our beach wheelchairs where people can reserve and open the lockers. So it's a thought. I don't know what the answer is to that, but I just wanted to put it out to you that it would come down to figuring out a way, what kind of person.
How do you manage? Yeah. How do you manage that? Yeah. Because at Uquinna Head, it's pretty easy because they have someone in the main booth when you drive in, and then you can get access right at that point. And I don't even know what it is. I've never used it, but I know that I see that gate going up and down, and cars can drive all the way down to where they're almost at beach level. And then they can get down on the beach easily there in the tide pool area. So yeah, it definitely could be a management issue, but it sounds like, there's already access, whether it's open or closed, for all emergency personnel. They already have the access they need to get up and down. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Who is it that manages the access at Cape Kiwanda for the dory boats? Because I know that there's a gate there, cable there, and I believe the dory fishermen have a key issued to them.
I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that question.
Chief, I don't know about how the dory boats get their access. I think there is something like that, but that is Tillamook County kind of owns the upland there. And so again, that's where we're out on the beach is Ocean Shores, and then Cape Kiwanda to the north there. But yeah, that's definitely changed the whole face of that group there. But they did have to take on some more staff to manage the parking. Then it kind of pays for itself because it's a pay to park there. So
Courtney?
Yeah, on 15th, the chief was sitting there saying that there's 100 vehicles down there Saturday. There's only 10 spots above that's available for parking for that beach access. Even Saturday, there was people parked on private property on the corner right there on her gravel driveway. So where are all those people supposed to be parking? But even with Saturday, there was multiple handicapped people that was down on the beach, but that's how they get down there. They take their family and kids down on the beach in their vans, and multiple handicapped people inside the vehicles. But last year when they had that closed, there's also multiple pedestrian access on the roads as they're carrying their stuff down to the beach. So, I mean, there's multiple points here that you look at what's actually safer, because there's, as far as I'm aware, there's never been a vehicle pedestrian accident on the beach itself. Most calls, but no actual accidents.
Okay, yeah, I'm not disputing that. I don't have the stats that go way back, but I know there have been close calls, and I guess my point is from a management perspective, who makes sure that that doesn't happen? Because we don't have the staff, Parks doesn't have the staff. Like Precinct says, there's been times we've been down there where we're actually outmanned because of the drinking and partying that's going on. We don't have the staff to even police it. And there's been times when I've said, we're not going down there this weekend. We just can't deal with it unless it's an actual emergency. And so, like I said, I'm not for closing something. I'm not against closing something, but I'm trying to find some sort of balance here where we don't have so many people down there that we are unable to deal with it from a staffing perspective.
I mean, would you be, would you close down, D River if there was too many people there? I mean, it's parking lot the same as the beach access is.
I don't know. I would dispute that with you because it's an actual parking lot. We don't have people doing donuts and cookies in D River or driving outside of the mountain.
Called out this weekend, and as well as on the parking lot by the mall, where they were driving their cars around doing cookies.
I think, Courtney, what helps with D River is it's got a lined parking lot and people can't go outside that. I think what my staff deal with the most is that there's tens to hundreds of cars going past that lot. It just becomes too many people, it becomes unmanageable for the city staffing capacity and for the state staffing capacity too. And then it just,
oh yeah, there's no.
I think a parking lot, it would solve things if there was a parking lot. I mean, you got to park here and you can't park there, but that's not what's occurring, unfortunately.
Also, I would like to add to that Lincoln City is in the process of redoing their comprehensive plan. And in the plan is an item to increase beach access parking. So I think the city does realize that they need more beach access parking, but I hope it's not going to be on the beach. And I can certainly commiserate with the chief about trying to get help with the beach, because really I don't see how they can manage it. I really don't. There's too many people.
Yeah,
If it were a seasonal closure, would that address the concern but still allow for some access?
I didn't understand what you said, Katie, sorry.
Oh, if it were a seasonal closure, if it were only closed during the summer, would that have some access but address some of the overcrowding safety concerns?
From my perspective, and Jeannie and I might not be on the same page as this, but from my perspective, yes. We rarely have problems down there in the wintertime, in the spring, or even the fall. We have problems on those heavily congested days in the city when everyone's coming over from the valley on their day trips and wants to go to the beach, or you have the 80-degree weather like we had last weekend, and that's where they all want to congregate. And so those are the times that we worry that we're going to have an issue. In the wintertime, we may have 5 to 15 vehicles down there on any day, and that's manageable. If we get called, we can manage that, but we can't manage 200 vehicles.
Well, I agree, Chief. I agree. I think besides the king tides, which I think is a very reasonable request to close those down since the entire beach is gone during king tides. I agree with what you're saying.
But I think that the problem is there's, how do you get that message out that it's only closed some of the time to visitors? people don't really read signs anymore. And some people are still going to go down there in January. And I think that the seasonal visitor, the seasons for that has really changed. It's getting longer and longer from my perspective. And I have I can practically see the whole beach from my house in the Cascade Head Marine Reserve, the no access, no harvest zone area. And so, I mean, I guess if that was really something if some people really wanted that, maybe the seasonal would work, but I just don't think there's enough enforcement to do it some of the time. I think the easiest way is just going to be no, you can't.
Ollie, may I answer Tori's question really quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, thanks, Ollie. So Tori, good question about how we would sign it. And you're correct, people don't always read signs, but luckily we would be placing that bollard barrier there. And so if they would damage their vehicle if they knocked it down, I mean, there would be signage up for it, just like when we do the King Tides and the July 4th, we put those bollards up. Obviously the fire trucks can get through it, but they don't want to even try to bust those down. They want to unlock them and take them down.
Yeah, and I was just going to chime in real quick too. I think that, Tori brings up some valid points, and I feel like I'm still not 100% clear on, in the last, let's say, since COVID, how many times or how much time during the year has both of these access points been closed or open? Because it sounds like I can tell there's already some seasonal closures that happen. You've mentioned King Tides, and you've mentioned really anticipated busy weekends with nice weather in the summertime, to where like we don't, as a community, we don't have the resources to manage the amount of people in this one small area if anything were to happen. So from a public safety standpoint, it makes sense to do those closures. And I don't know if this could be a simple solution, but I know from all the things that I've done, especially in the last 5 years, QR codes are becoming very popular. And it seems like everyone or almost everyone has a cell phone that can scan a QR code. And so if there were a QR code at the top of the ramp during let's say we're going to close it down this July 4th weekend because of the anticipated number of people down there and lack of safety personnel or emergency services to be able to provide any type of help down there unless it's an emergency. Could there be a sign with a QR code on it that says, hey, this is a temporary closure. It will be reopened on July 7th, or something of that sort, to where it would be something that could be easy to update and provide public information, so that when they're at that access point, they can see that it's closed and they know when it's going to reopen. But I don't know if that helps or solves any problems or not. But it sounds like from most individuals on this committee here are feeling like there's definitely the 15th Street is the highest. There's the most amount of people there because of the easily accessible, cement road all the way to the beach. So pretty much any vehicle can get down there. And then obviously there's some vehicles that can't get back up because they don't realize what they're getting into when they drive down that steep road onto the beach. Whereas the 34th Street is definitely not as busy of a spot, because you need a serious four-wheel drive vehicle with some clearance to be able to get down that steep drop off and back up it without getting stuck. And so I think that's a deterrent for a lot of people at that location, versus the 15th Street one is definitely way more popular and more easily accessible for any type of a vehicle.
Thanks. Preston, you had your hand up.
It's going back just a little bit, but the kind of the season anymore, and Tori, you mentioned that how it's getting longer. We almost do spring break to Halloween now, on the coast. It's pretty much slam busy, and then we do get those King Tides in the winter, usually like the November, December, January. We got some pretty good King Tides that, along with the winter storms and such like that. And so, Ollie, there have been more of a block closures once Lincoln City, instead of doing off again, on again, and that's kind of like red light, green light versus look, we're going to close it, June 15th through such and such a date. I know that's kind of been a little bit varied based on it, but a Tuesday in July or August is just as busy as a Saturday, pretty much anymore. Especially since COVID, and you mentioned that too. And we've almost said people have been almost more frantic to use the parks, to use the beach since COVID, and hopefully we've turned a corner on that. But the last couple of summers, it's been kind of frantic, is what I would call the mood down there on the beach. And so,
And Preston, are you saying that that right now, currently, both access points are closed from spring break until Halloween, or you're saying that's what you've done in the past?
No, that was more figuratively. That's from state parks. That's our season now. We used to be like Labor Day to Memorial Day kind of thing. Now it's like, boom, we're 9 months season now, not 4 months anymore. Really.
And I think we
closed it last year from July 4 to Labor Day, or I think the council closed it July 4 through Labor Day, the 15th Street one.
And is that just 15th that you're talking about?
I believe so. Jeannie could probably help me remember, right? 15th Street was the one we kept closed through Labor Day, and 35th, I think, has been closed.
Yes, that's correct.
And I feel like a really good point was just brought up. And I think one of the reasons this advisory committee is where we are right now is because of COVID. Because during that year and a half when everything was closed and you literally could not do anything, you could go to the beach or you could go to the mountains. And so I know from a surfing standpoint and from a beach, just being on the beach all the time, there is a significant number or an increase of people that are frequenting the beach, whether they're surfing or doing some other type of beach activity, that has dramatically increased since COVID. And it's the same thing in the mountains, whether you ride mountain bikes or you hike or you camp or whatever it is, there's a significant increase in numbers, especially in Oregon, because for a year and a half, kids were at home. They weren't going to school and there was nothing that you could really do. You couldn't go to any concerts. You couldn't sign up for sports camps. You couldn't go watch a professional basketball game. There was nothing to go do except the beaches were open and the mountains were open. So I think that one of the reasons we're here is because we've seen a dramatic increase since COVID happened in 2020. And I don't know that it's going to go away. I know, I forget who it was that mentioned kind of like, hopefully we'll get back to kind of normal, but I think we're going to continue to see a higher number of people that are visiting our beaches here, all up and down the coast, not just in Lincoln City, but from Yachats to, Rhodes End. That whole stretch has so many beach access points compared to the rest of Oregon. And we're situated in a really unique place because of our unlimited access and because of the magnitude. And what was the number again? There's 50 access points in Lincoln City alone. What was it?
There's 29 beach accesses, but there's 50 stops we have to do a day, Ollie, and removing trash and cleaning.
Correct. Bathrooms. But there's 20, you said there's 29 actually beach access points that you're managing on a daily basis. And that's just in Lincoln City. So if you think from Yachats to Lincoln City, I mean, there's probably in the hundreds of the number of access points that the whole entire Lincoln County is managing on a daily basis. So it's a lot.
I'm sorry, just to be clear, it's 27 beach accesses and then 2 state parks accesses. I was mistaken. 29 total.
Thank you.
Courtney, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, for 15th Street, it was actually quite a bit busier before COVID ever happened. But there would be cars parked clear from where Sailor Jack's is, probably 100 yards on the other side of the signs. But those are, you also got to look at, those are all tourist dollars. So if you eliminate the access that you're getting 150, 200 cars on, those tourists aren't going to stop. There's no other parking. The Dee River is full, 51st Street is full, Logan Road is full. Where are they supposed to be parking at?
And Courtney, since you're definitely, you use the 15th Street access, I think more than anyone else on this advisory committee. What are your biggest concerns with regards to that access point from a user standpoint of someone that frequents that? I don't know how many times a year you use that access point, or know of people that do, but what are your biggest concerns with regards to that access point from your personal experience?
There are safety issues that go on down there. Mostly because it's so many people down there that you can't drive safely. So it's a matter of either, my opinion is, make it like, if it's something that a lot of tourists want to use, why aren't we looking at making it larger rather than getting rid of it? Because if you have 250 people that want to use it every weekend, why don't you just expand it so those people can use it safely rather than try to pack all of it in a small section? Safety is the big one.
Yeah, I don't know if someone else was just chiming in, but it sounds like from what the law enforcement side of things is that even though it's a small area right now, it at certain times during the year it already goes over capacity of what they can even manage. So I guess from my standpoint, just thinking outside the box, if we made the area bigger, it seems like even more people might be down there, which could make it even more of a public safety issue if there's more people that are, even though the area is bigger, now there's more people there as well. I don't know if that helps solve any public safety issues or not, but it seems like it could potentially cause more just because there might be room for more people to be down there as well.
Yeah, we'd have to figure out how to, get a patrol officer down there on a more continued basis, which I don't think he's got staffing to actually do.
So from your perspective, it's a parking issue and access point issue?
Yeah, mostly, yes. It's because you get so many cars down there that you can't drive around them safely. You get the kids playing where they're in the middle of the parking lot. And it does become, issues of, the cars can't see the kids. Just like, if you allowed your kids to play in the Safeway parking lot, which there are people that do.
Oh, well, Courtney, I see what you're saying, but if you go on to the Lincoln City website, in the planning department, you can now make comments about beach access parking. And you might want to read, they have a final draft for that particular public service. And so I think that maybe that could be addressed down the road with more parking lots on pavement rather than beach. So, I think that in the long run, that's going to be a better tactic than getting more cars on the beach. And for people who just like to drive on the beach, there's plenty of places. There are some other places in Oregon to go if you want to drive on the beach, like especially the northern coast. I mean, that's why I don't even go there, because I don't want to be walking on the beach with all those cars around. And I think it's pretty, I don't know. I just think that people visit Lincoln City because we have this nice long stretch of beach where there's mostly no cars. But I understand what you're saying.
So we've talked quite a bit about the safety and some about accessibility and ADA access. Were there any other thoughts about ADA access? I know Lincoln City's done quite a bit to promote access in other points, but
with their Moby mats that they had out last year, they were having issues of people bringing their girls down there and setting them up on there. That was still blocking the wheelchairs from getting in and out on those access points.
Courtney, I'll have to disagree with that one. We had very, very few concerns about our Moby mats. The one concern we had was someone driving on them, and that they burned rubber on it, literally.
That one on 51st.
Yeah, but they're a single Moby mat. Sure, there's traffic on them, but we didn't have concerns. I did not hear once of grills being used
There
on
was
them or.
multiple call outs, especially at D River right there where they had, they were saying they couldn't get in and out because of the grills that were on the mats.
Okay, I didn't hear that. Those mats are easy to maintain and were well used and did not get damaged. We do hope in the future to make some T designs on the mat since they're just straight out to the ocean, and having some branch off so people in wheelchairs can be able to sit for longer. But they seem to be pretty successful in their use.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that as far as, because we were partners on that at the state parks, and even like the third day I was up there for another reason, and some folks walked off of those MOBA mats up to where we were by the restrooms and thanked me because they said they hadn't been able to walk, onto the beach. They weren't wheelchair owners, but that they were able to access a section of the beach that they hadn't for years. And so that kind of stuff is a parky kind of heart swells and such. And there was some graffiti, you always get a Yahoo that drives across it or something like that. And like Jeannie said, as we get time, we'll start doing maybe like a little modular off of it so that you can actually pull over to the side, or get out to the wet sand. But a lot of good capacity there. And so we're excited about that. And then we also, somebody mentioned e-bikes earlier, and so we do issue some ADA permits to folks who have e-bikes, so we use those as access as 10 mile per hour and such like that. So there are other alternatives, kind of as maybe this drive on beach access might be starting to get limited. We are still providing ADA access in other venues as well. So trying to still allow for folks to get down to the beach in a legitimate way.
If 15th Street weren't accessible, do you see more ADA permits there, or would you have people doing ADA drive on beach permits at other locations?
Katie, I don't know I can answer that. Like, if we close this, all of a sudden we'll have a bunch of folks applying for the permits because it is a highway, and so folks have the right to use the beach as a highway, but it's closed to beach driving. So as far as the e-bikes, most folks don't kind of access from wherever, whether it's by the casino or roads in. D River's an easy one because you can walk it right out to the sand, right? And so those we kind of tend to lead folks when they're inquiring, hey, I would like access to the beach in Lincoln County. Where are some suitable sites? And so we can kind of lead them from that point, and so obviously if we've closed 34th, we're not going to tell them to go there, that sort of thing.
Great.
Yeah, I'll agree with Precinct Katie. We've just never had that question before, and that doesn't mean it couldn't happen in the future about permitted ADA access to one of our beach accesses. We do have beach accesses that are accessible due to the Moby mats and beach wheelchairs. So we're trying to be proactive and supplement the accessibility in advance. But I don't know what the answer to your question would be then.
So it sounds like there's concerns about safety and environmental issues with the parking on the beach, and just the overcrowding piece, and then concerns about access and parking availability with closing it. Is there anything else that anybody had on either concerns with closing or concerns with keeping it open?
Well, also, I think you should add that it's been stated that there's not enough staff to enforce the rules and safety issues.
Staffing capacity. That's helpful.
Is there really any more of an issue down on 15th as there's on 51st, even though, because I mean, they're always having calls on 51st and at the gazebo right there for the, issues going on. What's the difference between, having issues there and having issues at 15th?
That's a good question, because 51st is more paved parking spot parking. Do you have different issues at 15th versus 51st?
Courtney, can you repeat your question? Is there a difference in it's just with parking issues?
Well, no, with the police issues, because they always have issues at 51st and the gazebo there, right at the mouth, right at the, let's park there. But they're not sitting there, complaining about those, but yet they're complaining about the ones on 15th. What's the difference between the two?
Well, Courtney, I think, go ahead, please.
I know the beach is closed to driving down at Taft.
Yes.
So, whereas the two sections we're talking about, 15th and 34th, are the only legal to drive on beach areas.
But what Roderick's one concern was, the police presence at 15th Street. They don't really have any more calls down there than they do at some of the other access points. So I'm trying to, what the concern is there as far as police presence difference between 15th and 51st.
If I'm understanding your question correctly, Courtney, I think the difference is just like you said, the people crammed into that one spot with no dedicated parking area, and the kids running around and the lack of visibility. The difference between the calls, I don't know that there would be a difference. We get the same kind of calls wherever we go. It's just the congestion that's on that beach on those super heavy days is what causes an issue. The other thing with 15th that causes us an issue is with people trying to get onto the beach and get off of the beach. We have traffic jams on that ramp when we have so many people in there. And so we end up basically, there's been several times we've got to call in overtime officers to stand there and just direct traffic on that because it's not built for that much congestion down there. If that answers your question.
Partially.
Good. Well, the other thing that we wanted to just talk through is what, let me share with you, what you think the fiscal impact of proposed changes, if we were to close vehicle access at both locations, what the fiscal and economic impact would be. And I know, Courtney, you already started talking a little bit about concerns with an impact to tourism, but thoughts on if both were to be closed, what would the impact be?
Well, from the Parks and Rec perspective, the impact would be that our maintenance staff would be spending less time cleaning and maintaining that beach access, as well as having the multiple conversations with people mistaking them for rangers and or police, even though we look nothing like them. So it would be a fiscal impact on that way, that we would be able to move on to our other accesses in a timely manner.
Okay.
For law enforcement, it would be the same. It'd just be staff time and staffing. I don't know that there'd be a huge fiscal impact. It'd just free us up to be doing other things than the beach patrol.
From state park standpoint, we do have a regular maintenance task of replacing and removing and replacing the T-bars that go on the beach. They kind of come and go. And then anytime we have that many vehicles on the beach, and I know folks that are beach savvy know when we get vehicles that go through the surf, that's an environmental challenge, and then it becomes a logistical thing to get them off the beach, however you can get them off. So, and then this is an area where we can have plovers and such like that. There are, potential for endangered species to nest here. And so there could be some wildlife benefits to closing as well. So.
And I think from a perspective too of patrons going down and utilizing the access, especially at 15th, that may not realize the impact it'll have on their lives, especially the financial impact. I can tell you the ones that have gotten their vehicles stuck have spoken to my staff and were obviously dismayed at their vehicle being incapacitated and stuck in the sand. So I think it may help put we always want to keep our public safe and educated and know what they're getting into, most importantly, safe, and to not have them have that opportunity of financially impacting themselves could be helpful too.
Courtney, I know you have concerns with the access. Are there some negative financial impacts that you see?
Well, you have all those people that were going down there, especially the day trippers from Portland, that, you know, they might not be spending much, but they're still getting gas and food, and they just won't, you know, there's a good chance they won't be coming down anymore. They'll be just going elsewhere. So all your little stores that surround that area will be getting an impact on it.
Well, there's also the flip side of that, that a lot of people don't like to walk on a beach that has cars. So a lot of people might not come to Lincoln City because they don't want to walk on the beach with cars. So I think that's really hard to measure what you're saying there. It's possible, but I think there's both sides to that one.
There's 7 miles of beach, and you're talking about, you know, 100 yards that has cars on it.
Yeah, but a lot of them don't stay in those boundaries. They don't stay in those it's just a post on the beach.
They had
Anybody, I've seen them.
Cars driving on Canyon Drive, which isn't even a drive on beach this weekend.
And Ollie, do you see an economic impact from a user perspective for surfers?
I mean, I don't know if I can say one way or the other. I mean, I feel like the 2 access points that we're discussing with 34th and 15th Street, I don't feel like either one of those specific locations are heavily frequented from surfers. I do know that those 2 areas, there's a lot of tourists that come, and they're heavily impacted in those small areas, and partly due to the beach access, because it is one of the you know, a couple of the good access points to be able to get down on the beach. But I can't say for sure if there's any positive or negative benefits either way on that.
Okay. Okay. And the other question that we always have asked our Rule Advisory Committee is around a racial equity impact. It's a newer question, and just looking to see, is there any specific group of people that you think are impacted more by this proposed rule change that we should be paying a closer attention to? And we've talked about accessibility and people with mobility challenges, but is there any other type of group that you think we should pay particular attention to? We will definitely put in the information about accessibility and the work that Lincoln County's been doing, or Lincoln City's been doing on accessibility information. Does anyone have anything else around the fiscal or economic impact of proposed rules or racial impact? Well, we appreciate all of your time to think through what the options are and what the concerns are. We'll be taking all of the comments that were shared here and taking it back to our leadership staff to talk through what some options are. And then I will share with you further any ideas that we come up with. And then if we need to, we'll schedule another meeting and with the hope of opening public comment on the proposed rules on June 1st. We'll have a public hearing. We'll do an online one and one in person in Lincoln City. And then the rules would close on July 14th, and then it'll go to the Oregon Parks and Recreation Commission at their September meeting. Are there any questions about the process?
Oh, excuse me. Could you just tell me again, when is the public comment period?
It'll be from June 1st to July 14th.
Okay, thanks.
And we'll have it on our website. And we'll send out press releases announcing it, but I will send all of you information about what the rules, the proposed rules after this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Katie, did you have a date yet for the public meetings? I want to make sure I'm available if I can, or you'll propose that soon.
Yeah, I'll propose that and we'll make them make it a time that you are available. So it'll be sometime after June 21st, but we have not set a date. But we will get those set out and get the specific dates. Any other questions or thoughts that you want to make sure we think about, discuss, share?
Not for me, but thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you.
Great. Well, thank you all for taking time to share your perspective and be a part of this process. We really do appreciate your thoughtful consideration and weighing different issues. And there's never any easy solutions when it comes to changing rules, but it's important to discuss all the perspectives. Great. Well, we finished a little early, so you have some time left, and I will be in touch if there's any need to meet again, or we'll send you via email the information on the final proposed rules.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.